Hi everybody. This is my first vlog, I guess you would call it a vlog. Um, I just wanted to find a way to get out my emotions and feelings in a positive way and to be able to really think through them and um, feel them as they come, but be able to like let them go. Um, and we're also going to be talking a lot. Well, I'm also going to be talking a lot about borderline personality disorder. And so being able to talk through your feelings and things that have happened is super important. So um, you can um, figure out the patterns in your life and like your triggers and whatever, and basically be able to manage this disorder. So, um, I'm obviously not a mental health professional. I'm just a 27-year-old that was diagnosed with BPD in February, so a couple months ago, and it's been a crazy ride since then. There's been a lot of ups, there's been a lot of downs. Sometimes I feel super great about where I'm at, and sometimes I feel hopeless. So I'm hoping that by telling my story and by figuring out my BPD, I can help others that have BPD. Or, I mean, honestly, I feel like a lot of stuff that I'm learning about myself could be beneficial to anyone, not just those with BPD. So I'm just hoping that me talking about this can help my own self, but it can also help others as well. So um, here we go. Let's see what happens. So, what is borderline personality disorder? BPD is a condition characterized by difficulties in regulating emotion. This difficulty leads to severe mood swings, impulsivity, and instability, poor self image, and stormy personal relationships. People may make repeated attempts to avoid real or imagined situations of abandonment. It is ultimately characterized by the emotional turmoil it causes. People who have it feel emotions intensely and for long periods of time, and it is harder for them to return to a stable baseline after an emotionally intense event. Suicide threats are and attempts are very common to people with BPD. Self harming acts such as cutting and burning are also common. So, to piggyback off of that, what was I going to say? Yeah, so if you are someone that has dealt and struggled with self mutilation or suicidal ideation or thoughts, it is very possible that you have BPD. I'm not saying that it is. And again, I'm no health professional, but I think I read that it's like if you self mutilate, you are 80% likely to have BPD. So just something to look into if that is you. Um, but here are the 9 symptoms. So if you have 5 of the 9 symptoms, then you have BPD. Again, no doctor, so I can't diagnose you, but just something to think about. When I read these symptoms, I was like, holy cow, like this is me. Put my picture next to this diagnosis because this is me. Like I was so excited to finally feel like I belong, which is so weird, but it's like I've always felt like I can't handle my emotions and I'm just like I'm too much and I'm too needy and like what's wrong with me? You know, why can't I be loved when I just feel like I'm so loving? And so it was nice to be like, "Oh my goodness, like there's a reason, like there's an explanation for, the way I am." So, here are the 9 symptoms. 1. Frantic efforts to avoid being abandoned by friends and family. 2. Unstable personal relationships that alternate between idealization and devaluation. This is also sometimes known as splitting. Distorted and unstable self image, which affects mood, values, opinions, goals, and relationships. Impulsive behaviors that can have dangerous outcomes. Suicidal and self harming behavior. Periods of intense depressed mood, irritability, or anxiety lasting a few hours to a few days, chronic feelings of boredom or emptiness, inappropriate, intense, or uncontrollable anger, often followed by shame and guilt, and dissociative feelings, so disconnecting from your thoughts or sense of identity, or out of body type feelings, and stress related paranoid thoughts. Severe cases of stress can also lead to brief psychotic episodes. Um, so yeah, I have all 9 of those. So lucky me. If you have 5 of the 9 of those, I guess I should have like been like 1, 2, 3, so you knew where each one stopped, but you probably got the idea. Um, so yeah, 5 of the 9, you have BPD. So it's something to look into. BPD is often misdiagnosed um, as bipolar or anxiety, depression, a bunch of different things. So definitely ask your psychiatrist or therapist or anybody that might be able to help you with this. Because there are a few causes. It can be genetic, but it also can be environmental factors. So it says people who experience traumatic life events, such as physical or sexual abuse during childhood or neglect and separation from parents, are at an increased risk of developing BPD. So, as I'm learning about this, I definitely think that my mother had BPD, and also my environmental factors definitely played a role in my mental health still today. Um, so that's kind of what the textbook definition is and the symptoms. Um, but it's so complex. It's so heartbreaking. Like when I tell people that I have BPD, they're like, "There's no way. There's no way that you could have that." And it's just because BPD is so, I don't know. It's not that it only comes out in relationships, but it really is triggered in relationships, I guess you could say, because the whole idea surrounding it is the fear of being abandoned because we were abandoned as kids and we dealt with, very traumatic things. So, you know, our partner leaving and going to the store or saying that they need space for a little bit, to us that's like, oh my goodness, rejection. What did I do? You're gonna leave, panic mode. It's like, it's, I don't know, it's a lot. So here's some of the things that I have experienced firsthand with my BPD. So my brain lies to me a lot. It's almost as if like you have the angel and the devil on your shoulder, but it's in your head, and the devil is constantly screaming, you're not good enough, you're not worthy, that person left you, your mom didn't care, your dad this, like, it's just like any negative thing that's ever happened to me or any negative thing that's ever been said to me, I keep that, and I keep that in my backpack, and my brain pulls it out all the time. And I have to literally fight my thoughts. I have to retrain my brain that, even though these terrible things happened to me as a child, it wasn't my fault. I can overcome it, I can recover from it, and it's okay to have feelings about it, but feelings are not facts, and that's what I really struggle with. Because people with BPD are very emotional creatures. I can't remember if I said this already, but people with BPD feel everything like 1,000 times more than the average person. So, like, let's say the average person, their emotional capacity is here. Someone with BPD, theirs is about here. So we feel the highs, like it's like the highest of highs, and the lows are so, so incredibly devastating and like unbearable. And so something that might seem ridiculous to you might be a huge, big deal to someone with BPD. It could be a big trigger, and it could just start this snowball effect of just negative thoughts and self doubt. And I don't know, it's like when someone abandons me or someone leaves, it's like every piece of abandonment that I've ever felt in my entire life comes back in that one moment. It's like I feel it all at that one time, and it's overwhelming, and it's hard, and it feels like you can't breathe. It feels like you're drowning yourself, and you can't come up for air no matter how hard you try. So we're very reactionary. There's the phrase that I hate you, don't leave me. So one minute we think you're the bee's knees, and the next, we think you're evil. We can't. It's hard for us to see the big picture. It's hard for us to see every side. We have our perception, and it's like our perception is fact. It's like you could have a red marker in your hand, and my brain will be telling me it's a blue marker, and I'll fight you tooth and nail to tell you that it's a blue marker. And it's just like people on the outside are just like, what is going on? But the person with BPD, it's like that's the truth. And they're so confident. Like, one minute I will feel something and I'll be so confident in what I'm feeling, and 5 minutes later I will feel the exact opposite and feel so confident in that. And it's like emotional regulation is so hard for people with BPD. We're always looking for the person that's going to take care of us. We're always looking for the next best thing, the person that's gonna, do everything for us and be everything that we need. But it's like, this is something that we're gonna have to fix by ourselves, because all of my relationships that I've been in, I've chosen a lot of crappy people to date, and that's because I haven't loved myself enough. I haven't been confident enough in myself, um, to save myself and to not give myself to people, give people parts of me that they don't deserve. Um, Lost my train of thought. It'll come back to me. This is also a thing with BPD. Being very forgetful, and that'd be my dogs. Hush. um, Hush. Okay, I'm not sure where I was going with that, but so like sometimes I feel everything, and also sometimes I feel nothing at all. Like, people with BPD feel an incredible amount of emptiness. Like, if we're not around other people, we don't know who we are. We don't have a strong sense of self, which, if I tell people that, they think it's crazy, because they're like, Haley, you are so strong and confident, and your beliefs, you know what you believe, and you know who you are. And it's like, yeah, that's what you think. That's the facade that I put on for people. People with BPD are intelligent and emotional, very emotional creatures. And it's like, we strive, um, we strive in our jobs, in our careers, but our personal life, that's where it gets bad. And like, BPD is different for everyone. It's like a spectrum. So my experience with BPD could be completely different than yours or someone else that that has BPD. Um, but let's talk a little bit about. Wish I knew what I've already talked about. I don't know. Let's just talk a little bit more about living with BPD. So, and okay, let's talk a little bit about my childhood. So, my childhood was very traumatic. It talks about how BPD kind of stems from a traumatic childhood. I was sexually abused from someone in my family and people that weren't in my family. I was never physically abused. I mean, I was like beaten with a belt. Like, I got my butt spanked with a belt, but I feel like in our generation that was normal. Um, but I witnessed physical abuse in the home. Um, I was verbally abused, emotionally abused, and neglected. And so, my parents got divorced, I think, when I was about 8 years old. And um, everything after that has just been incredibly traumatic. I mean, even before they got divorced, there were traumatic things that happened, obviously, like the sexual abuse, um, and that wasn't my dad that did that, so I didn't want that to sound like that. But like the sexual abuse, and my dad's an alcoholic. He doesn't have his license because he drank too much, and so just experiencing, a household where it was dysfunctional, and my dad was an alcoholic and my mom was depressed, and it just wasn't a good mix for, three young kids. And my dad worked all the time, and then he came home and drank, and so we just never saw a stable relationship. And then once they got divorced, it was like my dad was like serial marrying. Like, he's been married so many times, and my mom was just always looking for that person to fill that void. And so there were many men in and out of the house. We moved so she could be with someone. We moved back. Um, and it wasn't until she got remarried that things got really bad.